Hello, everybody. Good Saturday evening. Hope you've been having a great week. It is time for part 4 of the BS and a beer. Now, yesterday, I actually had a beer that was fresh, recently made. I know, I can do strange things like that. However, tonight we're going to go back in time once again to something a little older and something that I had brought up last week about the beers that have purposeful, kind of sour, vinegary notes. So we slide it into camera overly dramatically, and I present to you from Almanac Brewing in Alameda, California. So shout out to the Bay Area. We have, where are we at? The Farmer's Reserve Pluot. Ale aged with Pluots and aged in wine barrels. 7%. And there you can see there, this is San Jose, but that was their old bottling plant. Bottled April of 2015. Pluots are some of our favorite fruits. Created by crossbreeding apricots and plums, there are dozens of varieties with an amazing range of color and flavor. All through the summer, Blossom Bluff Orchards picks each variety at its peak. Dapple Dandy, Honey Punch, Flavor Queen, Buckcat, and Dapple Jack were all added to a sour blonde ale and aged in wine barrels to create this funky oak-aged brew. That's a lot of big words, and actually that's good because I was going to kind of try to get into what a Pluot is, but let's see how it's held up over the years. I have had this before, so let's see what 10 years does to it. And let's just... Ooh, there's that sour tang, and we've got the Tulip glass has returned. That's basically a catch-all glass for most of the styles of beer that really rely on aroma. So, like the sour ales, the IPAs, stuff like that. So in we go, 10 years old. God, it looks nice and clear. Not a whole lot of yeast sediment, which, again, I'm always surprised by when a beer is that old and relying on yeast. So, yeah. Pause 1 second. I'm going to move the camera, and then we're going to sit back and have a little BS session. All right, here we are. We've got our sour ale, wild ale, whichever they would like to call it. Let's get into it. It's sour. It's got tart, vinegar, and legitimately, if you didn't understand what this particular style of beer was, you would smell this and you would go, this is spoiled, something is wrong. Trust me, if you see any beer that says things like sour ale, wild ale, it's supposed to have that. That is perfectly normal. Not much, a little fruit. Now that the sourness is starting to kind of dissipate, you can get a little bit of the fruit. But if I wasn't aware of what fruit was in it and what kind of barrel it was aged in, I couldn't tell you at this point because the age is just too great. Well, let's have a taste. And I haven't had a good sour beer in a while, so I'm excited for this one, actually. Ooh. It's got that, ooh, yeah. Got that tart where it kind of gets you right back there. But that's all. That's all that's left. I don't really taste any of the fruit. Maybe a little hint of that wine kind of sweetness at the end. But the Pluots, picture up there, like the bottle said, is a combination of a plum and an apricot, and it does tend to look more like a plum than anything. I've never actually eaten one. I can't actually recall even seeing them in stores anywhere around here back when this was coming out and they were popular. But from what I've read, it tastes more like a plum, but with kind of that tartness of an apricot. It sounds like it would be good, and it would be something I would love to try. It did say summer, so, but who knows? The growing season has been so wonky lately. But now, the one thing I did say about the yeast, what they call the wild ale or the wild yeast, basically it is wild. It is a natural wild yeast, and sometimes in cases a bacteria, which is why it kind of has that funky sour taste to it. The predominant ones, and it's one of these, one of those words that just, you only know how to pronounce it having dealt with it. Brettanomyces, and what was the other one? Oh, the lactobacillus. Those are the two most common ones when it comes to beer. Both of them are going to impart usually a higher alcohol content because they're a much hardier yeast, and they're going to give that sour tang to it. And I wish I kind of knew how it was discovered. I'm betting, much like many other great culinary things, pause for one moment, much like other great culinary things, I'd be more than willing to bet, especially because it has to do with fermentation, that that this came about by accident, the discovery of these kind of sour yeasts. And sometimes, even to this day, it does happen. I remember years ago when Bell's Brewing was just coming into the market, the rep came and brought us a 6-pack of one of their flagship beers, a Bell's Two-Hearted Ale. Unfortunately, something had happened to it, and it had kind of been a little tainted by something. So when we tried it, it had kind of that sour thing. We drank it. It was weirdly delicious. And I think later on they went on to make an offshoot of that, called it like the Sour-Hearted Ale, like a purposefully soured one. But it was really good, and it was one of those completely accidental things. So I'd be more than willing to bet that's what it is. And then the addition of the Pluots, even when it was fresh, and I remember having some of these Almanacs when they were fresh. And they did a lot of flavors. They did cherry, strawberry, blueberry, yuzu, I think. I still have a couple more down in the basement of different flavors that probably we'll try at some point in the future. But I don't know, the fruit just kind of disappeared over the years. And I think that's the product of the yeast, and because that's how alcohol comes about. Yeast eat the sugar, and then their byproduct is ethanol, or alcohol. And now the final part, and then we're going to wrap it up because, man, this is going down a little too easy for a sour ale. Even a little bit of that sharp tang has been taken away. Last week I did I took up the 222 challenge from our buddy Cole Talks Books. And one of them I talked about that I actually did end up reading, so I wanted to just give a little quick overview of it, was this one, the American League, the early years, that I won in the contest from Daryl, Mr. 95 Cents. I went through it, and it was a very easy read, just kind of like I thought it would be, because it's predominantly picture-based. And I'll just open it up. As you can see, it's predominantly picture-based, but they tell the story, and I like the format of this. They tell the story through the captions, and there are some great pictures in here. There's a couple really old. Let's see. Where was he? A couple really good old pictures of Babe Ruth back in the Red Sox days. Yeah, see, this is why I'm just not prepared, but this is cool. And now I kind of want to see, oops, it's over on this side, Zach, if they have a National League one, because I would like to see some of the pictures of the early Pirates teams, back when the Pirates were actually a good and quote-unquote slightly respectable team. And it was good to get back into the reading, and especially with it, like I say, being predominantly picture-based, which I think is a really good way of kind of presenting information, telling a picture through a story through captions, I should say. It's just a lot of fun, and really now it's going to be like, all right, we'll continue to read, and that'll be something to add a little bit to the the 2 times at the end of the week BS sessions when I sit down and have a beer with you guys. And that is what I'm going to continue to do now. I'm going to finish off the rest of my, what was the official title? Farmer's Reserve Pluot. And also because Pluot is an absolutely funny word to say. So thank you much if you're having one along with me. Cheers. Be safe, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'm going to finish this and enjoy the rest of my weekend. So we will see you next time.